Hello, everyone, and welcome to 40,000 Layers. In this show, I'm Tashnell. Hello. I learned to paint a bunch of minis and hopefully get better at it. And Sheepy, aka the Wandering Inn, teaches us about Warhammer 40k lore. So normally we do an intro, but he is banned from intros for all time. Thank you to the folks supporting the show over on patreon.com/40,000 layers, and they are Sleepy Dragonman, Doozapindan, Thornlord, Mark, Particularly Money, Damned Man, Ramona Wonders, V Mushroom, Azian, and Grey Blue One. So thank you very much.
Woo.
You're banned. If you enjoy the show, I want to support it, head over to Patreon, check it out. There are Patreon exclusive posts, a custom Discord channel, bloopers over on Patreon, exclusive and non-exclusive, as I said, and you can vote for our next month's topic. So the topic for today is going to be Space Marines generally, and later in the month it is going to be the Harlequins. And I'm going to be painting this little Space Marine man, I guess, in some colour shift paint because I thought that would be fun. And now Sheepy is unbanned from talking. You're allowed to talk now.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It's me, Sheepdog, the dispenser of lore.
The dispenser of knowledge. Did you have like more to your intro there, or was it going somewhere?
So it was going somewhere, but you said something, and I'm glad you did, because my next comment was going to be the suppository of sentience, and I'm not sure.
No.
I'm not sure that works.
And yet you still said it.
Well, I didn't officially say it.
Okay.
I just, you know.
It's just in the
I
intro.
referenced what I was going to say. I didn't say it.
Okay. All right.
So, I have been developing a new skill, and it's called Figure Out at What Point Tash is Going to Stop the Intro.
The intro's done, son. Like,
No,
we are down with the knowledge now.
I know, but I was sitting here with my finger on the mute button, like, it's coming, it's coming, there it is. So yeah,
Okay.
Shall we then talk about Space Marines?
Yes, please.
Equally the least and most interesting thing in the 40k universe, I feel.
Okay.
Some of the best stories revolve around the Space Marines, and also probably some of the worst.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely the most popular kind of, I don't want to say faction, but popular, like most well known. Like when people think of Warhammer, they think of Space Marines.
Definitely.
I'd say the vast majority of people.
It's probably the reason that Games Workshop tried to copyright Space Marines and failed.
Yeah. I definitely knew that fact.
So what we're not going to do, because we kind of touched on it before, and if we talk about the, like, I mean, we did talk about it, but we're not going to go into, like, the origins with the Thunder Warriors and the Emperor, like, making them, and then, you know, everything happened to them. We also probably won't go deep into the Primarchs.
Yeah, because we talk about those in deep dives in other times. Yeah,
we'll talk about some of the chapters and you know, bits and pieces. But essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of I guess jump forward to just a general description of Space Marines. But then also just kind of like ignore the history, because through talking about 40k so far, we've kind of covered the history of the Space Marines.
Yeah.
Especially in Patreon exclusive chapter chats, where we talk about the Primarch and also their chapter or their legion, I guess. But so you have a reasonable idea of what the Space Marines are, right?
Big strong men with two hearts.
I mean, yeah, it's not wrong.
They are the peak warrior of the Emperor's reign. With they've been like genetically modified, and they're um the I don't want to say they're like clones, like I don't know what the gene seeds and everything situation, but they're
Yeah.
basically from like this peak amazing Primarch warrior, and they are good at stuff.
Well, we'll start off with a description that's wrong,
Right.
but will lead you towards
Was that my
understanding.
description basically?
What I was gonna say is, they're a bit like Captain America. If you got Captain America from like a prison, very often.
Okay.
Um,
Cause
it's
like they are they like ever baby space marines, or are they like human people, or like people?
they're human people.
Okay, so yeah, like Captain America, got it. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
imagine these little baby space marines pottering around like.
No, so essentially, like, we'll get into the recruitment process,
Okay.
but the majority of Space Marine chapters and the legions before them have and had recruitment worlds.
Yeah.
Very often, depending on the chapter, but very often they tend to like taking from death worlds and feudal worlds and places and feral worlds, places where people have to really fight to survive.
Yeah.
Partially because the act of becoming a space marine is such that no one would ever want to do it.
Hmm.
Like, you hear stories about special forces like the SAS and the training and the preparation they go through to become a member of these like elite special forces.
Yeah.
That's easy.
But for the glory
Comparative.
of the Emperor, like.
I mean, yeah, for the glory of the Emperor, but they go through genetic modification, psycho conditioning, and
Mm,
ridiculous training. They're pretty much immune to any regular type of disease or virus or plague.
okay.
Um, they can take like ridiculous injuries and heal.
Yeah.
They probably wear and utilize the most advanced technology in the Imperium.
Yeah.
The best weapons, they have their ridiculous power armor.
Big old hammer
Um,
sometimes.
yeah. And for the most part, they're mentally very strong.
Mm-hmm.
They are also, so you know how the entire Imperium is like the God Emperor, bless the God Emperor,
Yes.
worship and religious.
But he's
The,
not a god. Wink.
the Space Marines aren't.
No, because like I feel like aren't they a bit? I want to say that closer to the Emperor, and they know that he didn't want to be a god man.
Well,
But
it's partially that. It's also the Primarchs being so close to the Emperor
Mm-hmm.
and everything. Like, there is a very strong culty vibe to Space Marines.
Okay.
They're very loyal to the Emperor,
Yeah.
except for when they aren't.
Except for when they aren't, and they're
but
loyal to their Primarch. Okay.
let's not worry about that quite yet.
They're very loyal to the Emperor.
Um,
Wink.
Yeah, well, now the loyalist Space Marines are a lot more loyal to the Emperor.
Yeah, because otherwise they're gonna get totally murked.
Well, also because of the chapters.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not as connected to their Primarchs, and, well, also most of the loyalist Primarchs are nowhere to be seen, aside from the very sad boy in the blue armor.
Womp womp womp.
Poor, well, he's fine. Um, so one of the interesting things about the Space Marine is the psychology of them. They don't consider themselves to be human for the most part.
Okay. Are they like better than human, or how do they sort of Like, we
Well,
are the more advanced.
to give you an idea, there have often been times when Space Marines refer to other people as mortals.
Right. Puny human.
Puny human. It depends from chapter to chapter, from Space Marine to Space Marine, but they definitely feel different. They
Mm.
there's a disconnection, partially because they are almost worshipped by
Mm.
regular people. Like the awe, the fear, the I would say, if you're just a regular person in the Imperium and you see a Space Marine, it would be the equivalent to having a meteorite fall out of the atmosphere, hit near your feet, and it turns out there's a little nugget of gold in it.
I mean, they're like definitely not a cult, but yeah, worship
Hmm.
us. Okay, yeah, like such a huge. How tall are they? Because they're going to be massively imposing on people as well as being like
Yeah.
the best of the best of the best.
I believe.
Sorry, that's a very specific question. How
No,
tall
no,
are
no.
they?
I believe they're around 7 to 8 foot tall.
Okay.
They're about the same size as a. Well, that's not really a good. I was going to say they're about the same size as an orc. The problem is the more an orc lives and fights and doesn't die, the bigger it
Okay.
gets until some of them can be really big. And there's one of them that was absolutely gargantuan, but we won't talk about him yet. We'll talk about him some other time.
Okay.
He was called the Beast.
The Beast.
Yeah, he was a threat.
Yes.
And I believe he's the reason that Vulcan is no longer around anymore. Which is
Oh.
one of the Primarchs.
Okay. Well, we'll save that for another day.
Yeah,
Excuse
I
me,
think it's
hiccupping.
Vulcan. Essentially, the Space Marines, they are special forces, and they're a lot smaller than they used to be in terms of like size. Although,
What? How can they? They're like 7 foot, 8 foot in
no, I
armor.
mean
Like,
their numbers,
oh, okay.
not their.
I'm like, this physical size because we were just talking
Sorry.
about height. I was like,
Oh yeah,
how
yeah,
can they
yeah.
have shrunk?
Um,
Sorry. Yeah.
no, that was my bad. Definitely my bad.
Your
Saying like,
bad.
oh yeah, let's talk about how tall they are, and then also say they're really small in size. Um,
It's like, yeah, like baby space marines messing stuff up. Honey, I Shrunk the Space Marines.
yeah,
Can you
I'd
imagine?
love to watch that show.
Yeah. Make it happen.
Make it so. So it's essentially the Space Marines are like a mixture of the last defense and the like ultimate final attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're so potent that sending a couple of squads to a planet can change a war.
Yeah.
I mean, it can also do nothing if you're up against certain things. If you're up against the Tyranids or Necrons, you may want to bring a chapter in. Maybe it's
Briefly,
like,
yeah.
but yeah, they're seen a lot of the time as like the golden warriors, like descending from space to
Yeah.
save humanity.
Oh, but they just don't care.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not always true.
It's like
If Mm.
all the humans can die, as long as strategically they have won.
Well, not always.
Not always,
The
no, but
the salamanders, for example,
yeah.
will
Best
sacrifice themselves to save a person.
Not smart, really.
Well, but then you get others where and we've talked about some of them.
Space
uh,
Force.
I mean, not just like the Night Lords. and the World Eaters.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, those are traitor legions, but they were once Space Marines.
Angry, angry, Angron.
Yeah, it's essentially, essentially, they're very comfortable sometimes. I'd say a higher majority of the time, sacrificing people to protect humanity.
Yeah.
And quite a lot of them, they're very what's the word? They just don't care. You know,
Yeah, if it's like they call people mortals, are so beneath them, it's like an ant, right?
yeah, and they're not wrong, technically speaking. Like, they are much stronger, much better, inverted commas,
Mm-hmm.
because they are pretty much superhuman.
Yeah.
Um, so it's you can understand why they get, not agree with it, but you can understand
You
how
can
they get
understand.
there.
I think it's like, as you say, easy for them to do if they're like
Mm.
so people are so in awe of them and treat them super special blue boys, especially like, oh, they're the best.
Yeah, and also they're called the Emperor's Angels.
Yeah.
You know, they're essentially very, very important, and that's kind of drilled into them from basically when they start up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll touch a bit more on the recruitment thing in a bit, but I think what we should probably first go with is just touch on the Primarchs.
Yeah.
There were originally 20.
Mm-hmm.
There were 2 who aren't in the records, I guess, is the way to say it.
Expunged.
Yeah, essentially, the canon reason is unknown. It's essentially like, oh yeah, they were completely scoured from all records. No one knows what happened to them, except for maybe some of the Primarchs. There's a couple of comments where they're like, oh, you remember that Legion thing? And it's like, no, we don't talk about that. Shut the fuck up.
Don't talk about it.
But essentially, the actual reason for it is that Games Workshop left a couple of legions open so that players could create their own.
Yeah, I can paint whatever I want.
Yeah. And then later on, they did the chapters, which just essentially meant, there's so many chapters, you can just create your own anyway. It's not super important. And then they got this great fun mystery to have holding over everyone's heads, like, ooh, what are these 2 chapters? You'll never know.
You'll never know.
So yeah, the Primarchs are essentially, if the Emperor's a god, then the Primarchs are demigods.
Mm-hmm.
And the Space Marines are like, I'm not sure the right way to kind of do a comparison there. Like, essentially, imagine if someone like Hercules had a couple of kids.
Yeah.
It's that kind of vibe where it's just like, maybe they're the grandkids of the Emperor or something. So, immediately, one of the issues that they came across is that sometimes the loyalty of Space Marines were to their Primarch as opposed to the Emperor.
Yeah. Just Grandad after all.
Yeah, well, and also he was never around.
Yeah, he's never around ever. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh.
God, we're getting into it again.
Oh, here we go.
But, like, all of the Primarchs, good or bad, wherever they ended up, were, for the most part, there in the thick of things with their troops.
Yeah.
They led them, they, interacted with them, they were... And there's probably a slight amount of, like, genetic disposition towards loyalty, I guess. I'm not 100% sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, even the assholes like edgy Batman, what's his name? It's the Night Haunter. It's the Night Lord's Primarch is. Give me a second.
I need Conrad.
Thank you, Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz was an asshole to the Night Lords, but they still kind of wanted his
They were, yeah, like having,
approval and
it's like an abusive relationship where you just want them to love you. I
Oh.
wouldn't know. Like, not a fan of that. But
rough cut.
like, they really want their dad Primarch to love them. Like all the Primarchs want their dad Magnus to love them, please.
I feel like I should get you at some point to watch Emperor's text-to-speech device.
Mm-hmm. Probably just ripping into Magnus the whole time. Magnus is my least favorite son.
Well, yeah. So I won't spoil much, but Magnus does turn up and have interactions with the Emperor, and it very much is an angry teenager yelling at his dad.
Oh, but okay, we've spoken about this enough.
Yeah,
but the Emperor is a shit dad.
He is.
So no more babies for him. Okay.
Nope. So yeah, you know, you've got the Dark Angels, Lionel Johnson, Primarch, White Scars, Jagatai Khan, Space Wolves, Lehman Russ,
Lemon.
Imperial Fists, Rogel Dawn. Rogel Dawn is he's not disinteresting, but he's probably one of the lesser, for me at least. He's a bit of a Boy Scout.
Okay.
Blood Angels, Sanguinius, the pretty boy.
I love how deep and mysterious the name is. Sanguinius. For the Blood Angels.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I would never have thought of that.
You could say he's sanguine about his future. Although he shouldn't be, because he fucking dies.
Spoilers, Sheepy.
It's not spoilers.
Spoilers.
Have you ever seen that picture of Horus and the Emperor? Like, when they're facing off against each other?
Maybe. I'll have a look.
Maybe
they're just like, you know, really happy to see each other. That one.
So it's essentially like, I can send it over to you if you want. Essentially like Horus standing there in full black armor and like a red glow on his head, and the Emperor's like full golden armor with like a sparkling halo and a flaming sword.
Yeah.
You see that other dude who's like on the floor in front of them, who's like bleeding out and like, That's like the most famous 40k picture. Can you guess who that is?
Is it Sanguinius?
It is indeed Sanguinius.
Oh.
And his death sent the Blood Angels absolutely insane. To the point where they essentially get a let's call it a disease, I guess, where they frenzy and try to drink blood and all that kind of stuff. It's all very
Ooh,
yeah.
Spooky.
I mean, we'll talk when we talk about the Blood Angels and Sanguinius. We'll touch on that properly. But I quite like the Blood Angels. They're all right.
Why do they have eyes on their armor?
I'm not 100% sure.
As if you didn't anticipate this question.
Well, I did actually think, I wonder if she's going to ask about the eyes. For Horus, I believe it's like the Eye of Horus, you know, like the reference to Egyptian mythology, and also the Chaos Gods. Because I think the Chaos Undivided, maybe there's a symbol that looks like an eye, and Horus was like Chaos Undivided.
I guess.
But at the same time, that doesn't really explain why Sanguinius has them on his, so maybe I'm wrong.
And there's one in the background.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a future question.
That's an interesting story for another time.
Do some homework, get back to us on that one.
God. You're going to ask me for the Harlequins episode? Like, oh, so have you found out about the eyes?
I am, actually.
Oh, shit. Okay. But yes, Iron Hands, Ferrus Manus is probably my favorite one, just purely because of the naming.
Ferrus Manus.
Iron Hands, Iron Hands.
Yeah.
Ultramarine, Salamanders, Raven Guard. Raven Guard, I find probably they're the ones that make the least sense to me.
Birds.
They're the birds,
Yeah.
and they're also the like hit and run stealthy guys. Which
Right.
is just,
Yeah. Oh, they're the robot birdmen, not the bluebird men.
the blackbird, blackbird.
Yeah, no, I'm just they have like different types of wings than Corvus.
Corvus Corax.
Corvus Corax. I'm just like Raven.
Corvus?
Bird?
Corey
Corinne?
Corax? And then you've got the traitor legions, Emperor's Children, Iron Warriors, Night Lords, World Eaters, with our
The
favorite
badass
Angron.
ones. So, you know.
Death Guard, Thousand Suns, the best boys. Lunar Wolves, who were with Horus, but I believe they're now called the Black Legion, pretty much. The Word Bearers, which was the whole Lorgar thing and the religious. And the Alpha Legion, with Alfarius, Omegon, also Alfarius, and also Omegon. That's a fun one to talk about when we do. Yeah, so as I said, from the first founding, the original Space Marine Legions, there was the 2nd Legion and the 11th Legion, who were expunged from records, and they're known as the Forgotten. Well, they're not known as, but they're referred to when they're referred to as like the Forgotten and the Purged. So,
Yeah.
it's possible. Like
Maybe they got lost. Maybe they went through the warp one time and just like.
Well, one's called Forgotten, and one's called Purged.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a feeling that they went off together on some like expedition, found chaos, and one was like lost and the other one was purged. Would be my guess. So, you know.
Maybe.
Also, the Imperium does have a tendency to anyone who's been excommunicatus, which is essentially like excommunicated by the emperor by the emperor himself. They tend to be completely wiped from records.
Yeah.
So it's possible that they didn't find chaos. They just were a bit more what's the word?
Just like a little crimes, but not like heretical crimes.
Well, I mean, like maybe they weren't heretical, but maybe they were a bit more rebellious.
Yeah,
you know,
like
maybe a bit more.
You still know about Horus and everything, so
Yeah,
like he's not being expunged.
They don't talk about him much if they can avoid it. Also, it's kind of hard to delete a war that spanned the whole galaxy.
Look, if you want something enough, you'll spend a lot of astropaths on it.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Like he could just not have his snacks for a day and probably manage it.
Could you send my sandwiches out to wipe everyone's memories?
Oh, I know I'm so hungry, but like the greater good. Oh no, I can't say that.
Or maybe the psychos he got on a particular day were just the equivalent of like a corned beef sandwich, and he's just like, corned beef.
Send it out. Purge the realm of Horus.
And corned beef. So after the Horus Heresy, the legions were too powerful, and the remaining loyalists, some were in question. There were, for example, the Dark Angels, who are still viewed with quite a lot of suspicion, even to this day, because of things that happened during the Horus Heresy. The White Scars didn't actually declare which side they were on for quite a while.
Yeah, I think that's pretty sensible.
Yeah. In the end, they were essentially the reason that the Imperium won, it could be argued. Because essentially they didn't get involved in the fighting. They sat back and went, let's see what happens. And then Mortarion, who I think we've talked about a little bit, he turned up and he's like, hey, hey, Jagatai Khan, join us. And Jagatai Khan's like, mate, you can't have a bitch. And then just told fuck off, and then went and joined the Imperium and defended them.
Guess I'll help.
He was also kind of being held off by the Alpha Legion. Except for the Alpha Legion didn't attack him. Like if he moved towards them with his fleet, they moved away.
Right.
And if he moved away from them, they followed him. He's like, "The fuck are you doing? It's really weird. Stop
Having
being
a nice
weird."
little space dance, like back and forth, do a little pirouette.
So essentially, they decided to break down the legions into chapters, which is 1,000 men or 1,000 Space Marines in a chapter. So they don't go above that, really.
Yeah.
They can do, but it is usual not to. And they broke up the legions into about 25 successor chapters.
Yeah.
The chapters are still derived from the gene seed of their primarchs, you know. So if you're originally Blood Angels and you got broken down into the sad that Daddy died chapter. Sorry.
I just like
I was gonna call them the Angel Wing Fart Boys, but I was like, that's not.
No.
I couldn't think of a good name for a chapter, so I was just throw something out.
Sad that Daddy died chapter.
He's got out for cigarettes. He'll be back any day now. Daddy went to a farm. No. He's chasing geese.
Can't say that. Oh, no.
There's so many sheep and cow and geese up there for him to chase.
He's gonna be so happy. Yeah. Oh,
anyway,
no. It's too far away for us to visit. So
yeah. If you get like split off into one of these chapters, you still are created from the gene seed of Sanguinius, and you still receive the memories, the rituals. You know, like they change over time, but all of the successor chapters from any of the foundings have ties to the original Legion and similarities.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a Space Wolf successor chapter, they're going to be feral, they're going to be aggressive, they're going to be assholes.
Okay. Core traits. Yeah.
And then you have the Primaris Space Marines, which I really don't know much about. They're essentially, I think they're based. They're created by a Archmagos of the Tech Priests, the Adeptus Mechanicus,
Ooh.
on the orders of Blue Boy, edgy Blue Boy. They essentially when the Horus Heresy first happened was when Belisarius Cool, the Archmagos, the Tech Priest guy, was told to start working on it. And then when Gilliman woke up ages later, he was like, man, everything is really depressing. Have you done this whole thing that I asked you to do?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, kind of, but no one wanted me to use them. And he's like, well, let's whip them out and get them going. So the Primaris Space Marines are like super Space Marines.
Like
that's pretty much it.
Even superer than
stronger, faster reactions, bigger, better, stronger. You know, everything.
Yeah.
Took him 10,000 years to get this down.
You know, not long.
Yeah. And I think he basically worked off the template that the Emperor used originally creating the Space Marines and kind of improved it.
Oh.
Maybe. Maybe not improved it. Maybe refined it would be a better word.
Mm.
Anyway, we're not going to talk about them too much because I don't know that much about them.
Oh.
And also, we're talking about just Space Marines in general, and we'd have to go down a path of getting into all the details of, like, they're Space Marines, but a bit better.
They're just like big boys, like even taller and...
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I will say that the Space Marines and I think the Imperium are starting to get, like, better technology as well recently with, like, grav tanks and, you know, anti-gravity technology, shit like that.
Uh-huh.
Which quite a lot of people aren't happy about, especially the Eldar.
Yes, yeah.
Well, the Eldar players.
Because, yeah, they had, like, the anti-grav machines and...
Yeah. It was part of what made the Eldar unique and I wouldn't say good, because the Eldar haven't been good for a long time. But,
Ooh. Yeah, different. Interesting to play.
Yeah. So...
Like, so is that technology for the Primaris, or just like it's just
showing
happening
up
at
for
the sort of same amount of time?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
So, essentially, chapters, new Space Marine chapters aren't just created. You know, they're not like, oh, we have like a few too many Space Marines in this chapter, let's make a new one. They essentially get to a point where they make another set of chapters, which they call foundings. Essentially, they pretty much submit to the Imperium, and then wait for a long time and plan a whole load of crap. And then eventually it's like, okay, there's a new founding going, and then a whole set of new chapters are created, and they kind of establish a base or establish a recruitment world and start, you know, tooling up.
Okay.
And of course, you know how the Adeptus Mechanicus is really like core to the Imperium, even though they're pretty much heretics.
Yes. I mean, that's why they're allowed to get away with the heresy, because they're so important.
Yes, and essentially they are the ones who... Well, they're the ones who create, test, and develop the gene seeds. So...
Yeah, so I know the word gene seed. I just don't actually know what it's utilized.
So... Okay.
Like, how does one make a Space Marine?
Yes. So...
I know, I'm like, I know that's a question, but I don't know why it's a question.
Yeah. It's so I won't go super deep into it, because then we have to go into essentially the entirety of recruitment and all the horrificness of that and everything. Essentially, gene seed is a catch-all term for turning a regular person into a Space Marine.
Okay.
What generally happens is they'll introduce aspects of like viral like viral nanomachines and germ cells that essentially, it's like they infect them with superhero powers.
Okay.
They also implant different organs and you know, additional things as time goes on, as the regular person's body develops into a Space Marine body.
I just had another wait so moment of like, where are they getting these spare organs from?
I believe they're grown from the gene seed of the or you know, from the DNA.
Oh,
let's
okay.
say.
Like they just okay, that's fine. I'm like,
Primarchs.
how many people are they murdering to get this spare heart for everyone?
Well, they essentially they have the templates of all of the Primarchs,
Yeah.
and they develop they like develop the gene seed. Which is why you'll always see apothecaries, like Space Marine apothecaries, in squads.
Yeah.
Their job is to recover the genetic makeup
Yeah, because like
so
I've
that it
played
can
games
be.
where you have to like get the gene seed, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what is that like a pancreas? Like get the gene seed back. Like
It is that the was that when you were playing the Grey Knights
yeah,
game?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, and it's like you have to recover the gene seed. I'm like, right. So I'm just assuming at this point it's like, you know, like a pancreas or a liver, and I just have to take it back for use later, all that because it can't be lost to the enemy.
Yeah.
But if it's kind of the entirety of your biology and it's like throughout, like it's viral in your blood or in everything, like you just have to get rid of, like, purge the entire body at that point, right?
I mean, so the gene seeds is cut. It specifically can refer to the progenoid glands, which is the 18th of 19 implanted organs into a Space
Wow.
Marine neophyte.
Okay.
Um, essentially, the way that they implant the organs, and the organs respond to the other implants and the cells and DNA like implanted into them.
Mm-hmm.
They essentially, yes, this is, okay. So,
Sorry, I know I'm like asking biology questions at this
well,
point, but
yeah, no. So, they the cells, the DNA is like absorbed by the glands, and then um like produced and spread
mm-hmm.
essentially. And they, from what I know, and this is getting quite deep into the lore, they kind of fuel and produce the organs.
Right.
Um, it is essentially reproduction. It's the closest that Astartes will ever get to reproduction.
Okay.
Space Marines don't have sex.
Yeah. No, they can't be having that.
No. And if they did, I imagine it would not be pretty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, essentially, the best way to like, there's no reason to spend all of that time and effort and everything on creating new gene seed organs and glands and stuff when they can take out the mature ones of a dead space marine
Okay.
and implant them into
Put them in
someone.
like a refrigerator box, take them back for another.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It generally takes about 5 years for the gene seed to properly like mature, and probably wouldn't be able to be taken back until about 10 years.
Okay. Oh, right. So if someone dies, like let's say they've done all the training, they've had all the thing like implemented, they're out
Yeah.
in the field. It's after 7 years,
Yes.
like those are just gone.
But they'll probably try, but they may not be
Yeah.
able to. And also, in general, when the Space Marines are, I think 10 years is probably a bit early for them to be
Out
heading
and
off.
about. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the time, and it probably is, it'll say in one book that it's 2 years, and in another book it'll be 50, so.
Yeah.
But essentially, what you need to know about the gene seed is it was a catch-all term a long time ago when no one cared about the biology and the science of it all, and then later on, Games Workshop was like, "Hey, we should probably explain this." So
Yeah.
they hired someone intelligent to write lore for them.
Okay. So that I can ask the question.
And I can try and answer.
The next question is, where is it? So that when I see it as space, rip out their pancreas.
I'm not even sure. I assume they have a pancreas, but I'm not sure.
They better have, like, how they need that to function.
I mean, Space Marines can go
They can
quite a
do a
long
lot. Yeah, it's
time.
true.
You know. They can actually go into a form of like hibernation.
On purpose?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if they're like stuck out in space for ages, they're just like, I'll shut down for a while.
I need to. I feel like Space Marines are ridiculous.
Oh, they really are. But that's kind of what makes them interesting. Um, so an aspirant to become a recruit Space Marine, you know, like a starter Space Marine,
Mm-hmm.
usually anywhere from 10 to 16 years old.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
yeah. It can still work a little later on, but usually it's you know reasonably easy earlier.
Yeah.
Um, I think essentially while they're still developing, it's easier to change.
Yeah. Hmm.
Very often, well, not very often, but on at times when a Space Marine, when a recruit gets to the point where they've kind of gone through all the ridiculous trials and you know managed to survive them, you know, it's the equivalent of like winning the lottery sometimes, essentially.
Is it?
Uh,
Is it like winning?
Well, in terms of like odds, you know, the likelihood of becoming a Space Marine, even when you're picked to be like an aspirant,
Hmm.
is really out there. But sometimes you go through all of that shit, and then you get the gene seed, and then you just either go insane or die.
Yay.
Yay! Um, and then after that, you go through more training, uh, where you essentially get kind of psycho tortured so that you won't fall to chaos and a whole load of other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to
They
account for that.
they go through a lot of mental training as well as physical.
Yeah. I thought they must do. Obviously, as you say, they've got to get mentally strong, but like,
Yeah.
they've got to
And
be the
then
super best.
basically they usually become a scout marine, which is kind of, you know, like a recruit, and then eventually they'll become a full initiate and join the chapter, become a full on space marine.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, they just basically their entire life is service to the emperor, fighting, waiting to fight, sitting around waiting to fight, thinking about fighting.
Having a little relax, react.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
like
Thinking
scrolling
about
through YouTube a little bit.
that would be illegal.
Depends on what they're watching, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose like you can watch the Emperor's
New Groove.
the Emperor's New Groove. Oh, there's only one Emperor allowed, so no.
Yeah, a lot of it can be a lot of the stuff that isn't horrific body modification and like mutation and all that kind of thing. It is essentially indoctrination.
Yeah.
There is a very religious vibe to how the chapters operate, but there is no actual religion there. They don't worship any gods. They express extreme loyalty to the emperor and to a certain degree to the imperium.
Yeah.
Even like an inquisitor, and inquisitors tend to be some of the highest echelons of like authority, just out and about in the imperium.
Yeah.
Even they would quite often hesitate to give a space marine an order.
Right.
Not because
Okay.
they don't have the authority, but because there's a decent likelihood the space marine will turn around and shoot them in the head and be like, I don't take orders from you.
Yeah, I was being bossed around in that game by an Inquisitor, and I was like, this absolutely would not fly. Like,
I mean, it does
like,
because you know the Inquisition is oof, but
well, it was, I don't know, I was very between, I wouldn't, I can do what I want, I'm a Grey Knight, and then also I wouldn't speak back to the Inquisition.
well, there was a Space Marine chapter on Armageddon who got into a little bit of a tiff with an Inquisitor
Oh.
and with the Inquisition. and randomly they found themselves ambushed and outnumbered by orcs, and their chapter died almost to a man.
Oh, that's so mysterious. I wonder how this has happened.
There's like one or two of them left, and
That's
they went
messed
on.
up.
Well, they went on a suicide mission to regain their honor.
Okay.
So it's like the Space Marines are very impressive,
Mm-hmm.
but even they have to be careful sometimes.
Yeah.
And with everything all said, even though they're not human anymore, really, they're still human. They can still die.
Yeah. Which takes a lot.
Maybe we'll do an episode at some point where we talk about the entirety of creating a Space Marine. There's 19 different organs they have that aren't anything that regular humans have.
I know. I wanted to ask, but I'm like, I can't. I'm not allowed.
I mean, they have. I'll go through a couple of them quickly. They have secondary heart. They have the multi-lung. It's a third lung.
Very
that
sensible.
Lets them hold their breath for minutes and maybe hours. I don't know. The extra lung also can filter like toxins and stuff like that. So
Very sensible. We should all strive to have another lung.
they have an extra kidney,
Right.
which removes toxins and stuff, so they can basically eat poison really reasonably easily and like kind of like filter it out. And
They don't need food tasters then. Just eat what they want.
they also have one which is called the Betcher's gland, I think. Which is located in their mouth. It's like a saliva gland, except for it's acid. They can like spit acid.
Oh, that's not okay.
Okay,
That's silly.
that's silly.
That is silly.
And they have two hearts.
Yeah, but that's sensible. Like if you get shot in one heart, you have a whole extra heart. Spitting
Right.
acid is just ridiculous.
Just silliness.
That is just silly.
And yeah, the crew, once they start the process of being implanted, generally like from 10 to about 18, so like 8 years or so takes them to become a full like
Yay.
Space Marine.
What's the first thing they get implanted?
I believe it is the heart.
Okay, yeah. Because, the strain for the rest of them.
It's useful to have an extra engine pumping.
It's like, we're just a little stressful, Kyle.
And I think the Primaris Marines have a few extra new organs and stuff.
Oh?
Yeah, just like, well, not necessarily. I think because they were enhanced by the Mechanicus, they have a little extra kind of like.
They're like, you don't need
mechanical
this.
stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like their sinew and muscle is reinforced with cables.
Yeah. Just, as the Adeptus Mechanicus, I want to do, like, add more and more. Right?
Yeah.
Like, get closer to the machine god.
They do enjoy that shit.
Ooh, it's a little bit. Oh, I don't know if the Emperor will be happy when he wakes up about that one.
I mean, he's been away for so long. Like,
I feel like it's not going to be happy.
probably not.
He's a very judgmental man.
That's an if. It's an if.
Yeah. You got to be hopeful and say when, okay?
When. So, yeah, it's the Space Marines can essentially operate kind of independently.
Mm-hmm.
Because they always kind of followed the Emperor, and then the Emperor's gone. They also followed their Primarchs. Most of the Primarchs gone. They have their chapter masters and all that type of thing. And invariably, when there's like a big orc invasion or something, they do tend to band together and
Yeah, get things done.
and they do often operate within the sphere of the Imperium as well. And they, dependent, they tend to be willing to fit into a battle plan and take orders and that type of thing. But there's always an aspect of like, we're doing this because we want to.
Yes. You can't tell me to do this, but
I'm doing this. And you're not
funny.
exactly going to complain.
Oh, more teenagers.
Oh, yeah. So, invariably, in the chapters, you essentially have usually a couple of ships. And then you have, like, the command, which is, like, the chapter master, the honor guard. You have random extra stuff. You actually have tech marines. Tech marines are essentially space marines who, much like the apothecary, except for their like the tech aspect. So they like to, they get very close to the mechanicus, and they tend to have a skill with technology and all that type of thing.
Okay, it's allowed. For the good of the Emperor and the Imperium.
Yeah. And then they'll have, like, transport vehicles, tanks, ships,
Yeah.
etc., etc. They have the chaplains and the reclusiarch, and essentially, like, the I want to say moral core, but,
a Space Marine armor thing is
Yeah.
basically like being in a tank. So if they're in a tank, is it a Space Marine tank? So it's got to be bigger and more ridiculous, or is it just a tank that also hangs out with Space Marines?
A good idea would be if you look at the Space Marine Rhino or Land Raider.
Right. Okay. Because obviously the Leman Russ is smaller and usually has like Imperial Guard in.
Leman Russ tends to be is Imperial Guard.
Yeah.
The Land Raider's a good example. Like, it's a big tracky beast boy, and it's like a transport.
Okay.
As is the Rhino. They tend to be bigger, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just hadn't seen them in comparison, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. Trying to find a picture now.
I'm gonna send you this picture.
Ah, yes, I have a picture. Right.
This is slightly different.
Oh yeah, with the I have a motorbike,
Hmm?
I need to strip the paint off there.
I do know.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there's a picture for people who obviously can't see. There's a picture of a biked up Space Marine zooming out the front of a Land Raider because it was inside, which is, again, silliness but fun.
I think that's sensible.
Okay. your bar for sensibility is
Look,
yeah.
sometimes they might need the maneuverability of a bike. Okay, you don't know.
Fair enough.
You don't know.
I'm not gonna argue.
You can only fit like one in though, so that is a little bit silly. Like,
you don't know, there might be more in there.
No, it's not big enough. Like, unless it's sort of the TARDIS inside, it's not big enough.
Have you seen inside? You don't know. Could be the TARDIS.
I can see the outside.
Yeah, but
Look,
you can see the outside of the TARDIS. I'm just
we
saying.
We can't do cross faction. Like the TARDIS would be 1,000,000% illegal. It's definitely chaos. Definitely some
definitely
more
chaos.
bullshit. Like.
But essentially, for the Space Marines, you got the apothecaries, you got the librarians. I imagine you know what a librarian is because you did the game.
Yes, yeah.
Then you have the first company, which is pretty much always Terminators, and then like 9 other companies, so like a total of 10. And some of them are like scout companies, some of them are reserves or support. You got like battle line companies, and that type of thing. So that's like how it was organized back when I I had some Space Marines,
Mhm.
in the like 90s and etc. Think things have changed since then, but that's my understanding of them. And obviously, depending on the doctrine and the chapter, that can change. Like some of them will have like assault companies
Mhm.
who have like jetpacks and chainswords and stuff like that. So,
Chainsaws. Yeah, when I was building
and
the
there's
Space Marine
dreadnoughts.
boy, like looking at the models for them, there are some quite intrinsic differences. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
okay.
Uh, One fun thing actually is the Terminators very often can teleport.
Yes, because I played that.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Why? I do think that's silly, but
okay. But as we've established, your definition of silly is
yeah,
very
okay. No, I
flail.
mean
It like
silly.
flails
Like
everywhere
they
and
have certain rules, right? And
right.
like um, messing around with witchcraft. I feel like it's I don't know. It's in my head of like they don't do that. Like the super soldiers, very sensible. Like and then teleporting. Mm, what do you think?
I mean,
Do you see where I'm
it's
coming from with that?
I do. It's very rare technology.
But it is technology,
It is technology.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
it's a bit like the Star Trek where you have to like lower the shields and then you can teleport in.
Okay.
So it's not like you can go anywhere and do anything, and I wouldn't say it's dangerous necessarily, but it could be.
Okay.
Finally, just before we finish,
Mm-hmm.
I want to tell you a little bit about dreadnoughts
Okay.
because people often think that they're just robots.
Yes, they
Burp, burp,
do
burp.
look stompy.
Oh, they are stompy,
Stomp, stomp.
definitely stompy. But okay, say you're a space marine, right?
Yes. Well, I can't be a space marine, but you know,
No,
let's say.
so maybe we'll finish off with that. But anyway, um, say you're a space marine and you serve for like let's say 200 years, pretty decent.
Mhm.
You fight, you win, you succeed. Um, if you reach a point where essentially you're in a war in a fight with some orcs or with some Tyranids or Necrons even, and you basically get crumped.
Mhm.
Your body is to the point where it's basically unsalvageable.
You
I
are
mean,
heckin'.
maybe you can survive, but you're not going to be able to fight really.
Yeah.
They will repair you,
Mhm.
transfer you into a sarcophagus, hook you up to life support systems, transfer the sarcophagus into the heart of a dreadnought, and then you are now a pilot of a dreadnought.
You know, for people who judge the Eldar
Mm-hmm.
quite so much,
You going to defend the Eldar?
it's very reminiscent of the, you know, magic stones.
Yeah, it has similarities.
Maybe like did the Mechanicus come up with this?
I'm honestly not sure.
Because haven't they like they're aware of the Eldar like
Yeah,
consciousness, I suppose, being able to drive this machinery. So I could see the Mechanicus just not mentioning that to the Imperium, be like, "Oh, we have a brilliant idea. We definitely haven't stolen it from Xenos, though."
I mean,
Um,
do you remember what the Emperor was doing before
um,
he got smacked by Horus?
having
Remember what Magnus kind of ruined?
yeah, he was doing the gate, like the tunnel
The
nonsense
Webway project,
webway project. That's what I said.
which is a derivative of the Eldar technology.
Yeah, you know, they're just copying. They're just
Yeah,
copying
they just
their
copy the Eldar
homework.
all the time.
Oh, now
It's
they're
the real
copying their
truth.
magic rocks. Maybe humans will have magic rocks soon.
We can only hope.
We can.
Or maybe we can only not hope, because you would most definitely hate the Space Marines more if that was true.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of rocks do you think they'd have? I think like they'd have to have it'd be like, oh no, if Space Marines were into like crystals and they have their own crystal for each chapter or for each legion.
Oh God.
Oh no! Why did I think of that?
Let's not.
Let's not.
Let's not. But yeah, the oldest dreadnought
Yes.
in existence currently is a Space Wolf dreadnought called Bjorn the Fell-Handed.
Bjorn.
Yeah, Bjorn is about 10,000 years old.
Oh, it's just cheating.
Technically speaking, because obviously it'd be debatable as to whether
Yeah,
you
can
call
he?
him alive.
Does he like age in the sarcophagus or? Because he could just be hibernating, right? Like,
he's kind of kept alive by technology that's similar-ish to the Golden Throne, except for not really.
Yep.
So, there are also some really old. But I mean, some of the Chaos Space Marines are still alive from the Horus Heresy.
Yeah.
But there are some Chaos Space Marine dreadnoughts who are just literally insane because they've been, shoved in there against their will.
Oh no.
And just slowly go crazy. Because some of the dreadnoughts are also possessed by like demons and shit.
Yeah.
So it's not a fun time.
Now I'm thinking of like, could you put an Eldar Rock in one? You could have possession.
I doubt it, but maybe.
Well, I bet they could figure it out.
Yeah. I'm sure Belisarius Cool will give it a good old college try. But yeah, essentially the only other thing I was going to say is obviously as part of the current law of 40k, women can't be Space Marines.
Yes, I did know
Which
that.
I think is very kind to women when you find out how you make a Space Marine.
I've seen a little bit of discourse of like that it currently isn't possible. But then, we have the Sisters of Battle.
Yeah,
And
honestly, like if you're looking for badass female warriors in 40k, I mean, technically speaking, the orcs don't count for anyone because they don't have genders.
they're mushrooms.
They're mushrooms. The Necrons used to be male and female, but you can't tell by looking at them. The Tyranids, who the fuck knows? The Eldar have some really badass women. Quite a lot of their strongest Farseers and like literally their strongest warriors, let's say, are female.
Stupid how battle sheet.
Right. And then, am I missing anyone? I'm probably missing more people. The Tau.
I don't know how, but then also, if they decided in the future to change anything, it's not like the first time Games Workshop have I kind of think of it as alternate universe or like parallel universes.
They just adjust their lore and no one really minds. Like, as long as it makes sense and everyone enjoys it, then it doesn't really matter. I would say, like, I like how the lore is. Obviously, I'm coming from a male perspective, but I like how the lore is because, honestly, if you were to say to me, hey, what would you prefer to collect a Space Marine army or a Sisters of Battle army? Sisters of Battle are cooler and more badass because they're not superhuman.
I kind of feel like if I don't go deep dive into the lore beyond that, and I don't know what it takes to make a Space Marine. But like
it's essentially torture for years.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like, if I just decided that my Space Marines were women, like they would be wearing the same armor anyway. So like,
the majority of Space Marines tend to keep their helmets on for a start, and
Yeah, so I'm like, well, for me, but again, I'm not sort of rules lawyery.
Yeah,
I'm not that kind of player in most things. So it's a bit easy for me to say.
I think the worst case scenario for me would be if they made Space Marine female, which I wouldn't have a problem with that. I'd have a problem if they had like they redesigned the Space Marine armor so that they had boobs.
Yeah, I feel like it's just poor armor planning though. And like so
Yeah.
many things, that's why they would have the same armor. Because look, this is important for armor making. If you
Yes.
have a boob shape in armor, that is going to concave
Yeah.
the opposite way if you get hit in the boob. So just have normal armor. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, just have normal armor.
I get really angry about that. You might be able to tell by.
Unless you're making a film in Hollywood and need to sell the sexy.
No.
No.
No boob
No.
armor.
No boob armor. Right.
Just armor.
But, you know.
No.
No. You're right. You're right. But yeah, essentially there were Space Marine women. There were women in Space Marine, like originally when they first were doing 40k.
Mm-hmm.
But no one bought them because the overwhelming demographic of 40k back then was men.
Did they not have boob armor? And that's.
Do you want to see a picture of?
I kind of do. Yeah.
Okay. They don't look good.
Okay. I mean, some of the older models, you know, they're older models. Is how I'll phrase that.
Yeah. But like the thing is you know it's I don't think it's something people would be particularly opposed.
No, what in the world? Why? Ugh.
And like the thing is I can understand.
I wouldn't buy that.
No, I wouldn't either.
Like seeing the older Space Marine, like I'm just frustrated because obviously no one's going to buy that. So then why would it show to be popular, you know?
Yeah. And I think the real thing here is no one dislikes. Well, I'm talking generally here. Of course, there are going to be outliers and people who disagree and people who argue because there always is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone hates the idea of female Space Marines because at the end of the day, I think everyone loves a badass, like Viking style female Amazon warrior type.
Yeah, they just want it to make sense.
Over the last like 5+ years, it's been very apparent that people love that shit.
Oh no.
But the thing is like it is established how it is, and if they're going to change it, they need to make it work. I think the worry a lot of people have is that to appease new female fans who are coming into the hobby, they'll just randomly be like, blam, this is a thing now. Don't question it. We haven't explained it. And that would kind of suck. Because as crazy and contradictory as 40k can be, all the changes and things like that, and all the kind of like, well, they say this, but they say this. It's all kind of figured out, and you can deep dive into lore if you want, and it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I feel like that is a valid criticism. I don't think it's necessarily like I don't want female Space Marines because I don't want female Space Marines. It's like I don't want them because currently it doesn't make sense. Like obviously I don't know why it doesn't make sense, but like wanting something to work in the lore, even if lore is tweaked and changed as it has been, then I think that's fair.
I'm sending over a couple of pictures. There's things like this.
Yeah,
which
that's
is like,
really cool.
It's like fan art and concept art, and you know, people who obviously are like, oh, it would be cool if we had female Space Marines like this, and I can get behind that visually. It looks really cool.
I don't. It does have booby armor, but I don't mind it.
It's actually quite good booby armor as booby armor goes. It makes sense, I guess.
Yeah,
but also
it's like panels, isn't it? It's not hyper focus, and it's not like a bikini.
I guess the question is
like I would paint that model.
Yeah, but the thing is like there are always instances of, you know, like, oh, we don't have female Space Marines, and it's like but why? Like, I understand in a way why you want them, but also why do you want them?
Yeah, but you are.
Yes, as
Yeah.
I've said, I am male, but and like I can't transplant my view and my
Mm.
experience to someone else. All I can say is for myself, I don't want a male sister of battle. I love the Sisters of Battle because they're so fucking badass.
Mhm.
And having a male version wouldn't change that for me.
But I feel like the Sister Battle is comparable to a Legion, like one Legion. But then obviously the Space Marines cover so much, and like you
There are
can really find an interesting aesthetic and something that you really want to be
you
like
can
quote a part of, and feel like you can't because it's like that's a
you can do that with the Sisters of Battle too. They have different like essentially chapters for the Sisters of Battle.
right.
Um they're kind of based off some of the saints and some of the other
Hmm.
stuff. There's like the bloody chalice is one of them, and oh god, this is I don't have the relevant information up to deep dive into the sisters, but yeah, there's different type of sisters you can have.
Okay.
I do understand what you mean. Like
And
you've got
like the Space Marines are such a central, well-known like core part of Warhammer that I think.
yeah, I imagine it can feel quite isolating for people coming in to be like, not only is there this core central most popular part of Warhammer 40k, but there's no women allowed, and
Yeah.
you're like, well, why?
Like
But
I am slightly anticipating me saying, "Oh, I'll just pretend that my Space Marines are women." I am slightly anticipating someone be like, "You can't do that." If I was playing in a game.
yeah, I mean, I would say that as far as anyone reasonable in the 40k hobby
Yeah.
is concerned, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, and I think like there's always the 1% are the loudest voices, aren't they? So,
Yeah, and they'll
um,
complain, and it'll be an issue, but it's not actually an issue. Um, I would say, like, at the same time, it's not the same as having female space marines. You know,
what's not the same?
pretending.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah,
So
but then it's not the same.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
both sides of the coin of it's not the same. I'm having to project onto it, but like anyway, this is a whole discussion that we
Oh
could
yeah,
have
yeah.
for like
Sorry.
hours. Uh,
Essentially, I just wanted to touch on the fact that there aren't female space marines.
yes, yeah,
I think I'd be open to having female space marines as
uh,
long as it was done in a considered way.
yes.
And having said that, if you're interested in space marines and you're like, oh, I really like space marines, but I want there to be female space marines, go check out the Sisters of Battle. They're fucking awesome. They're
Mm.
more awesome than space marines.
I don't know. There's a noise marine that looks pretty fancy.
I would kind of like, you know what they might be able to do.
Mm.
Sorry, we will start.
We'll
Like
end at some point.
we've gone off on a fucking ramble basically. But you know what they might do is, because of how they're made, they could have chaos space marine women, which could be
Oh,
really disturbing and interesting.
okay. Nervous laughter, anyone? Um,
But having said that, like, I think it would be quite difficult for them to make space marines just because of what the female space marines, just because of what the space marines go through and the chaos space marines go through to be created. It is literal torture, and I imagine if they did it, everyone would suddenly be like, yeah, why are you doing that to women?
equal opportunity torture, Sheepy.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
If you want to get tortured, then whatever, it's none of
Yeah,
my business.
there you go.
Um
It's not your decision.
it is not. Anyway,
Anyway, right, let's wrap up.
yeah. Am I doing an outro? I don't do an
Do you want to
outro.
do the outro? Okay.
Do we do an outro?
Sometimes we just say thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. let us know what your favorite Space Marine Legion and chapter are, if you want, or if you don't want, that's okay too.
If you enjoy 40,000 layers and want to encourage more in general, go check out the Patreon. Check out the pledges, see if there's anything that appeals to you. Pledge, and as we go, we'll expand things. There's goals, there's stuff. So give it a look.
Bloopers to be added now, although they'll be up by now. Okay, well, thank you very much. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time.
Laters.